The Badgers get a commit from a high upside offensive tackle. Let's talk about Maddux Cochrane, what he could mean to this class. Plus, who are some stock up football players that you need to buy stock on right now? Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Appreciate you joining. Appreciate you being here. Today's episode, we are talking about the new offensive tackle that committed to the Wisconsin Badgers, which players we're buying stock on right now for the football program. First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. Okay, let's talk about Wisconsin gets another commit in the portal. Let's talk about Maddux Cochrane, what his game is, and how he fits into the Badgers. But first, we definitely, as always, got to sound that cannon.
Fire the recruiting cannons. Another one is headed to Madison on Wisconsin.
Let's go. Okay, so Maddux Cochrane, 6'7", about 290 pounds, coming out of Virginia. Let's start with the pros. Just massive size. You're looking at a 6'7", 290, 300-pound kid. Really long arms. You can watch the film and you can just see the arm length, the wingspan, the measurables. And we're coming up on the NFL draft, which is going to be held in a place a lot of us are going to be able to go to finally. But when you look at NFL measurables, these are the type of measurables you're looking at in an offensive tackle. You're looking at 6'7", 6'8". You're looking at the ability to move the feet a little bit. You're looking at really long wingspan, big arms. Like, he fits a lot of those physical traits, which is why I think this is a high upside get. You go and watch the film. He finishes blocks. Right. One of the things we talk about with offensive linemen a lot, and Maddox does this really well, is do you finish blocks? Do you knock somebody over, then lay on top of them? Do you have that nastiness? Because being an offensive lineman, being a great one, you kind of have to have a little bit of prerequisite nastiness in the trenches. He's got that. You can see it on film. That's one of the things you can find on film. I'm not an offensive line coach. I'm not a football coach. I'm not a scout. But there are things that if you watch enough football, you can pick up on. Finishing blocks is one of those things. You know, I'm not going to be great with technique, footwork, those things. But does he finish? Does he wash people out? Does he take somebody and just maul them? Yeah, he does all of those things. Plays past the whistle, or right to the whistle, I should say. It's nothing dirty there, but he plays really physical, washes people out, moves well. You know, for somebody who's 6'8", 6'7", and already 290, 300-ish pounds, his ability to pull, there's a couple backside pulls where he's coming across the entire line, finding somebody in space, walling him off. He has the ability to move. He's not a clunker with his feet. He's not clumsy with his feet. I don't think he has elite movement skills, right? This isn't Kevin Haywood coming out. But at his size, I've seen offensive tackles go to really good programs that moved worse than him coming out of high school. So I think size is fine. I think his movement skills are totally fine. He finishes blocks. One of the things the Badgers have really done the last, I would say 2 or 3 years, is they've moved away from taking quote unquote project guys on the offensive line where you have to see how they're going to bulk up. How is this player going to add 30 or 40 pounds? All the guys they've taken the last several years are 280, 290, 300. I think that's great because now you don't have to project what is Maddux Cochrane going to look like at 300 pounds. He's already playing at that weight and moving. I think it gives you a safer prospect, a higher floor. One of the things I like about this as well is I think you start him at tackle. I could see a path to right tackle for him. And then if it doesn't work out, maybe eventually move him to guard. But I think he has the type of length that you have to start at tackle. It's kind of similar to baseball for me. And by the way, if you see my eyes darting around, my camera setup is wonky since I came back from Madison, so I'm trying to fix it. But that being said, you know, when you take those lighter guys, a lot of times you can't really project how they're going to play with another 30 or 40 pounds on them. With Maddox, it's not, you don't have to project that. He's already at 290, 300. Some of the things that we need to see, you need to see him get bigger and stronger. Not bigger, but he needs to get stronger. He's really lean on the top side. That's somebody that's going to have to add strength. 10 or 20 pounds. So that's going to have to happen. This is not an offensive tackle that I think comes in and, you know, is in the 2 deep right away because I think there's some development there. Technique, he plays really high. A lot of offensive linemen at his level do. We talk about just about every high school offensive lineman coming out, how they play with a lot of high technique. They got to get lower. They got to play with more leverage. Well, especially true if you're 6'7", 6'8". And there's definitely clips where he just stands up, you know, and he just doesn't play with the leg drive that you need, that you're going to need at the Big Ten level. But those are correctable, coachable things. What you can't coach is 6'7" with really long arms that can move and find people in space. I thought some of the run blocks were really good. Shows power. He'll wash people out, take a couple people out, down blocking. I think this, again, profiles as a potential right tackle going forward. Somebody who I don't think it's somebody you're necessarily going to project as we're going to mirror him up with a great pass rusher and just trust him to kind of wall off that side of the field against elite pass rushers, elite SEC type athletes on the edge, Ohio State type athletes on the edge. But I think he can hold his own as a pass blocker because he has size. He has great wingspan. You can see it on film, and he moves pretty well. But I do think as a run blocker, he's somebody that could be really powerful. And this is somebody 2 years from now, put him in the program, let him fill out. I trust AJ Blazik. This was one of his first guys he targeted. This is a high priority guy for him. Blazik has earned that benefit of the doubt to me. So I think it's a nice get for the Badgers as they add to that recruiting class. Let's get some comments in here. Hey, Tyler Strieber, happy Easter, Ryan. What's up? Dude, I should have led with that. Happy Easter, everybody. If wherever you are, whoever you're with, I had a great day with the fam today. Happy Easter, everybody. I hope it was incredible. Jay says, is this live? Yes, sir. Let's see. Yeah, we got Mills in the chat, Tyler in the chat, a couple other people in here. Michael is in the chat. Jay in Toronto says, how did we lose Cotton to Cincy? So Joe Cotton was one of the top portal offensive tackles in the market. Decommitted from Western Michigan, entered the portal. Cincinnati picked him up. Wisconsin was in on him. Michigan was in on him. Let me tell you what I think happened. There's a couple things. I think if you go to a school like Cincinnati, when you had a Michigan and a Wisconsin also on the table, I think to some degree that means Cincinnati probably threw a bit of a bag at him. To some degree, it means Cincinnati paid really, really well. And maybe they promised a starting spot. You could argue, I don't know for sure if that's what happened. You could argue Wisconsin should have promised a starting spot, but I also think Cincinnati probably paid up there. And it is what it is. Sometimes that's going to happen. Darren says, I think Cotton knew he had a starting spot in Cincy where that probably wouldn't be guaranteed at Wisconsin. Yeah, I think it could be that. I again think there's money element involved there. And if you're a school like Cincinnati, you probably have to pay up, right? If you're a school like Cincinnati competing against a Wisconsin and a Michigan for an offensive tackle, you probably have to overpay the market because otherwise you're probably not going to get that guy. And I'm guessing there's an element of that's what happened with Cotton. What does that leave this current recruiting class like? So you got the 26th class now. You have 2 offensive linemen. This is the second offensive lineman, a 6'6" guy, 6'7" guy. So you've got some kind of bookend tackles. I don't think you have an elite athlete in that group yet, but I think you have a couple guys who could project there. You have the quarterback already in play in the 26th class, Ryan Hopkins, and that to me is a high upside guy as well. So you have a couple high upside players here. You have 1 receiver. I think you need a couple more there. You have no running backs. It's still early, but you're going to have to land a couple running backs, at least one. Amari Latimer is a big-time target for him this cycle. He was just on campus. So that's kind of what you're looking at running back. You have 1 defensive lineman. And going back to Ryan Hopkins, we talked about a high upside guy there. Carmelo Reed, the defensive lineman, is another high upside guy they have in this class. So they have 6 bodies, 2 offensive linemen, a high upside defensive lineman, a high upside quarterback. They have to add receiver. They have to add at running back. They're going to need a couple more defensive linemen, a couple linebackers. But it's not – I've seen people frustrated at the pace of this class and maybe where this class currently sits. I'd agree. I don't think it's a great class to start. I don't think they're probably exactly where they were the last couple cycles, but it's still April. I don't think they're that far behind. Now they're going to have to land some Plan A guys if they're going to kind of match the pace of the last couple cycles. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that, but I do like the pickup today. I think there's a lot of upside for a 6'8", 6'7" player who can move pretty well already. There's just not a lot of people on planet Earth walking around like Maddux Cochrane who can move, who has arms like that, who is potentially a right tackle that in a couple years, I think he needs a couple years. I think this is a player that you get him in the weight room, you get him in the program, you coach him up, and in a couple years, this could be a 6'8", 315-pound right tackle that moves pretty well but has a ton of power and length. You can win with that. So I like to pick up a lot. I think it's a high upside one. This is one Blazik was in on. This is not a plan B by any stretch guy. This is a plan A guy for AJ Blazik, and I think you got to trust that guy at this point. All right, we're going to pause there. We're going to come back. I love this segment we got coming up because I was talking about buy low players when I was at the spring showcase and people were around me. We started talking about who would you buy stock on right now. I'm going to give you my list of 10 players to buy stock on right now on the football side. I'm curious where you guys are at. Put your players in the chat. Let's talk buy low candidates coming up next on Locked On Badgers. Really excited about this one. This is a fun one. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show. And as always, a quick second to say thank you for tuning in to Locked On Badgers. Today's episode brought to you by our great friend over at Gametime. If you want to get together with friends, with family, with the community, with other people that root for the same type of teams you do, Gametime is incredible. This is your number one source for all your ticketing needs, because getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Gametime comes in. It makes it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. Gametime curation makes it easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater. They cover you in every type of event. Whatever you're trying to get to, Gametime has got you covered. Easy shopping, super deals, peace of mind. It's secure. It's simple. You get the tickets emailed to you. I've used this service personally. I can vouch for it. I've got the tickets in the email. I did it from a cab or an Uber, actually, on the way to the game. It is incredible. It's so easy. It's so simple. You're going to save money. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's talk buy low. Who is a buy low candidate for you on this football team? And I'm excited to do this one. I think this one's going to be fun. Hey, Brandon Lane's in the chat, man. Listen, I don't know if that's Brandon Lane's father or his or Brandon Lane himself. He's been balling. He made a couple plays in the practice I was in the other day. Whenever I was watching, he made back-to-back plays. Really fired up Coach Whitlow. I think he's going to play this year. I think that's a guy that is definitely a buy low candidate. All right, let's get into some of these buy low guys. So I made a list of 10, and throw yours in the chat as well. Number 10 for me, Latimer, the cornerback that came over in the portal. I wasn't fully sure when he came in where he would play, where he would slot, and he's been getting a lot of reps with the ones and twos. A lot of reps where even in the spring showcase, he did a great job covering a mesh route where I thought he was physical, really played well. I think he's a little faster than I gave him credit for, which is on me. I think this is a guy who is going to slide into that two deep and play a lot this year. And I don't know if when we got Latimer in the portal, I don't know if we necessarily slot him into that role. I think a lot of people said, depth piece, I'm not really sure. I think he's more than a depth piece after watching practice, after talking to some people. I think Latimer is going to play. So I'm going to go Latimer with number 10 on my list. Kyle Matry says, Brandon Lane, buy stock. I'd agree with that. I think he's looked really good so far in the practices I've been able to see. Darren, Latimer, buy. And hopefully it helps to sign his brother. True. So Latimer, also the older brother of Amari Latimer, the big-time running back prospect that the Batters are in on. All right, let me give you my number 9. And if you have any more in the chat, let me know. Let me know who else we need to buy low on today. And just for the purpose of this, we're not talking about players who are really good, who've already established themselves like Vinny Anthony. We're talking about the guys who could break out this year that you're trying to buy low on, right? You're trying to buy as before they take off. So another one here, number 9 for me, Tucker Ashcraft. So we all know the Koziel story. The tight end comes in. He lasts 3 weeks. He says, nah, this isn't for me, whatever. He bounces. He goes to Houston. Underneath all of that, Tucker Ashcraft has quietly put together a great spring. You look at the work he's done with his body. He's bigger. He's stronger than he was last year. That's something that is really available and really apparent. He's somebody who I think physically is ready for this now. You know, he came in as a true freshman, played right away. He wasn't ready to play as much as he had to as a true freshman tight end in the Big Ten. I think he's ready for that now. And when I say buy low, he's not going to be an all-conference tight end this year. He's not going to jump to the portal and command $1 million. But I think he could be a really solid starter where he can leak out. He can catch passes in that intermediate 0 to 15-yard range. He had a couple clips just watching in the practice we saw at the spring showcase, but also earlier, a couple clips where he washed a player down. A couple defensive ends and linebackers where he's able to get physical with them, push them around a little bit. I think he's a guy where he's going to be a really solid tight end this year, and people are too down on him. I'd buy stock on Tucker Ashcraft. Number 8 for me, Chris Brooks Jr. Listen, again, I was high on him last year coming out of spring. Definitely a player who I thought should have played more. The practices I was able to see in Platteville, the dude caught everything. He's big. He's pretty physical. He's not a burner, but he's not running a 4.75 out there. He's probably a 4.6 guy with good size, which plays in college football. People underestimate how fast a 4.6 guy is with size. There's not a ton of 4.5, 4.4 guys out there running around. There's not. I promise you. I think he's a 4.6-ish guy with good hands and good size. And I think Grimes is going to love him. We saw him a bunch with the ones in spring so far. I think this is a guy who's going to come in, probably not statistically have a great year. You're not looking at 20, 30, 40 receptions for Chris Brooks, but maybe 15-ish receptions, but a ton of reps where they're throwing screens behind him. He's chipping people. He's being physical. Couple big possession plays. I think this is a guy who's going to live in that 1 and 2 range, in the 1s and 2s in the receiver room. And before spring, I don't know if anybody was penciling him in there. Buy stock, Chris Brooks Jr. Let's go. Tackett Curtis at number 7 for me. So 2 years ago, when he committed, was it 2 years ago he committed to USC? Whenever he committed to USC. This was a guy I was so high on. The Badgers were so high on. I don't know if there's a player they've recruited harder. Crazy high school film out of Manny High School out in Louisiana. One of the top players in the nation, goes to USC, and then he gets hurt, right? And he kind of tries to play through it. I don't think USC did him any favors, and it kind of wrecked his season, and it left lasting stuff. It took a while for Tackett Curtis to work through that. And last year was kind of some of the rust getting knocked off there. I think this year he's ready to roll. A couple really good practices we've already seen in spring. People are talking about him. He's right in there with Christian Allegro. I think that's going to be a really athletic inside linebacker duo. I am all about buying stock on Tackett Curtis this year because I don't think this stock's going to get any lower. In fact, I probably should have had Tackett Curtis higher than number 7 on my list. Okay, let's grab a couple comments here. Zach Bartz, Eugene Hilton should get some reps in the 2 deep. Doesn't play like a true freshman. Plays like a vet. Seems like he had a solid spring. Showed his potential over the weekend. I love that one. No, I didn't have him on my list, but I probably should have, to be honest. Eugene Hilton is a great one. Zach Bartz, toss in Fearby. Dude looks absolutely massive. He can absolutely hold the edge. Yeah. Tyron Fearby looks enormous. Massive guy. And a really good athlete. Again, another guy, not to Tackett Curtis's level, but another guy whose high school film showed ridiculous amounts of athleticism. I think he's another good one here. Jesse Wilder, Jameer Scott, made some plays in spring. Long, probably physically ready to play as a true freshman. I like that one as well. Kyle Matry says KBJ, Kyle Barry Johnson. I think it's going to be tough on Barry Johnson when Tretch gets back because I almost put Tyrell Henry in my top 10. But again, I think with Tyrell Henry, same type of thing with KBJ. I'm not sure when Tretch gets back if there's going to be very many reps at the slot for those guys. I could be wrong, though. And listen, KBJ has some athleticism for sure. All right, let me get into my number 6, and we'll take more comments, and we'll take a break from my top 5 to buy stock on this year. And again, this is just my list. It doesn't make it the right list. I would love to see everybody's list. My number 6, I'm actually going Danny O'Neal. And I say this in the sense of when he committed, I think everybody kind of just said, ugh, kind of a short guy. I don't know. And then you know Billy Edwards is a starter. So it's really easy for Danny O'Neal to kind of get left in the shadows there where people aren't really talking about him. But every single year since ... I mean, I can't think of the last year the Badgers didn't need a backup quarterback. When was the last year a starting quarterback made it entirely through the season and didn't get banged up for the Badgers? I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure if I sat down and thought about it, but my point is you might need Danny O'Neal this year. And based on what we saw at spring, based on some of the things people have said about him, I feel much better about that now than I did when he committed, when I didn't really know who he was. And then you see him run, you see him move a little bit. I feel kind of okay in short spurts if your backup quarterback goes in right now. And I didn't know. I don't know if I would have felt that way when he committed. So I'm also buying some stock on Danny O'Neal. Okay, let's keep going here. Coach Max says, I will not buy any stock in these tight ends. I'm under the assumption that tight ends would have got more looks in the spring showcase if they were good. Probably the worst room on the offensive side of the ball. Yeah, listen, that's a totally fair point too. I think there was a play in the spring showcase. If you were there, they kind of lofted the ball to Tucker Ashcraft, and the ball got knocked away. I thought the throw was a little late, but I also thought Tucker Ashcraft could have been a little more physical there and secured that catch. So certainly the tight end room has to prove itself. I think that's completely fair. Matt Agnew says, not sure if Hilton can still be considered a penny stock, but even if he's not, I'm in. Let's go. All right, let's take a quick break there. Come back. I'm going to give you my top 5. I want the rest. If anyone else you guys are buying stock on, but it's got to be somebody whose stock is a little low right now. Coming up next, Locked On Badgers. Let me know who else you're buying stock on. I'm going to get into my top 5 list. But first, today's episode also brought to you by our great friends, over at Supply House. Supply House is the spot for all of your HVAC, electrical. There's a lot of really handy people that listen to the show. I know that. And these are things that I can use as well. If you need anything along those lanes, if you're a skilled trade you're looking for, electrical, Supply House has you covered for plumbing, HVAC, and everything in between. Easy to use website. Over 200,000 parts. That's about how many players are in the portal. And over 400 top brands. You're going to find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House has you covered. They have expert support, industry-leading service. You're always going to talk to a real person. You're not going to talk to AI. And for trade pros specifically, if you're looking for that extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks, dedicated phone lines, free shipping, and discounts on every order. So all the stuff you need, now you can get it cheaper with free shipping and dedicated phone line. Why not? Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM. Start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Okay, let's get into my top 5, and then I want your list here. My number 5 is, sorry, I lost my list for a second, Jackson Aker. I think Aker is interesting in that there's a bit of a renaissance resurgence with this offense and how they're going to use them. I also think Tanner Koziel not being there is going to open up a few more reps for Aker to be kind of an H-back to kind of flex on that spot. I think short yardage, who are you going to look to if you're Grimes this year? Maybe it's a Dylan Jones. Maybe it's a Gideon Atuka who can move the pile a little bit with his size. I think it could be a lot of a Jackson Aker. We need 2 yards. We're going to use Jackson Aker. We need somebody to be a bit of an H-back, potentially use Jackson Aker. We need a personal protector on 3rd and 12 out of the shotgun. I think you could see a guy like Aker in that role as well, right? Somebody who is a really good physical blocker who understands pass protection schemes. I think he's going to find a role in this Grimes offense bigger than he's had in recent years. So I'm buying stock on Jackson Aker. Number 4, which I saw this one in the chat as well. Josh, you and me, man, like Legos, we're sticking together on this. K.D. Akimelli. I love this dude. I love this dude because much like a Carter Gilmore and a Kamari McKee on the basketball side, players who just stuck it out and improved, K.D. Akimelli is just going to stick it out and improve. He's not going to jump to the portal. He's just going to keep grinding and keep working. I think that alone makes him really easy to root for. But I also think you look at what he did last year, and everyone said, why couldn't he get more carries? He's going to get more carries this year. You saw him break off a 55-yard touchdown, run up the gut in the spring showcase. I think he's firmly in that top 3. And firmly in that top 3 that's going to get play. He's going to get reps. And quite frankly, I don't think he'd be here if that wasn't the case. Right? I don't think the coaches would keep him on if they just intended to kind of shelve him again. So buy some stock on K.D. Akimelli. I think he's going to have a really good year. I think 500-600 yards as in that rotation. I think you're going to use him quite a bit. Dylan Jones, back to the running back room. I'm buying stock on Dylan Jones as well. Dylan Jones, again, I think that stock is starting to get kind of expensive. There's a lot of people talking about him. There's a lot of little hype there, but I still think you can get it pretty cheap, especially on the national level because he hasn't had that breakout season, but he's the clear number 1. And when is the clear number 1 running back at the University of Wisconsin not been a high stock? I think if you play in college fantasy, not in the Wisconsin ranks because every Wisconsin fan knows Dylan Jones, but on the national level, this is a player you could get pretty cheap that could explode this year. I mean, you could go from Dylan Jones barely seeing the rock last year to 1,200 yards this season on like 5+ yards per carry. And nobody that's watched practice would bat an eye. Nobody would bat an eye this year if you look at the end of the season and you look up and Dylan Jones has 1,200 yards and he's a 2nd team all Big Ten type of a guy. I think he could be that good. Maybe 3rd team all Big Ten. There's a lot of good backs in the Big Ten. Number 2 for me, Charles Big Perk Perkins. Again, a player that is throughout spring, a lot of people have talked about. The size is absolutely legit. I think he's going to be one of your starting impact defensive linemen on that front 7. I would buy all sorts of stock on Perk right now if you can still get it. That stock might have blown up a little bit with the way people have talked about him, but I would buy Charles Perkins stock. And last but not least, I am buying every bit of Jaden Ballard stock I can get my hands on. This is the type of receiver that can come in and just give Wisconsin something it hasn't had in a long time. And we knew that, by the way, when he committed, right? We knew Ballard could do that. But the question was, why hasn't it clicked? Why hasn't it unlocked? And early returns, very early returns. But it's looking like he's a little ticked off and he wants to take advantage of his last year in college. He's looking like a 4-4 receiver that is getting behind the defense regularly. I've seen it several times in practice already. And just the practices I've been to. So I'm going to buy Jaden Ballard stock as well. Okay, let's get some comments here. People, Darren says, Brooks, buy. Based on early returns and practice reports from Nick Osen. I agree there. Also, Coach Mack on Hilton. Stock is rising, expecting to see a lot after Game 3 this coming season. Good seeing you yesterday. Oh, it's always great to see you, Coach. Man, I appreciate you coming down and saying hi. We met up on the field. It was awesome. Dennis Reynolds. Michael Garner. Yeah, possible high NFL draft pick. I don't know about high NFL draft pick, but definitely has the frame and some of the measurables to get to the league. That's definitely a good one to buy stock on as well. Coach Max said Daniel Neal's a freshman, had 12 touchdowns, 6 picks. That was a low ceiling and his roof is high. He may be the quarterback after Billy leaves the next 2 years easily. He can break the pocket and make plays. I love that comment because I think internally and even written, I think we've said, okay, Billy Edwards is the guy, and then let's see if Carter Smith takes over. And Daniel Neal is just kind of here in case there's an injury, need a veteran this year. Well, what if O'Neal's the quarterback going forward? What if O'Neal is the guy, takes advantage this year? He does have some mobility. He's got some a little gunslinger mentality to him. What if he's the guy and it's not Carter Smith or it's not Ryan Hopkins if and when he gets to campus? I think it's an interesting comment. I will say this. I was too low on him when he committed because he has got way more juice. You look at him, and honestly, if you just look at him, he looks like kind of a Braden Locke. Not very big, not very imposing, but he can move. He can scoot. He's pretty decisive. He's got enough of an arm. He's already played an entire year where I think he completed 60% or more of his passes. I could see it. It's interesting. I could see it. Will Hanna says Aker in that H-back role could be a very important piece of this team. Yeah, I agree. 100% I agree there. I think that's a guy who's going to get a lot more reps in this Grimes offense than he ever would have gotten under Longo. And I think it's probably partially why he's staying. Trent says, I've been buying Ballard stock ever since Brian Smith said OSU doesn't rotate receivers, which is why he didn't see the field. Yeah, I'm telling you, he's gotten the best of a couple of our better cornerbacks this cycle. I think the thing with Ballard is you're not looking at like a 60, 70 reception season, 1,300 yards, but you're going to have some game-breaking plays from him, and he's going to open up a lot of other things on the offense. So I'm also buying stock there. Darren says, more excited about Ballard than I've been for a receiver in a long time. We've needed a guy to take the top off of defense. Agreed. I agree. Let's see. A couple other comments here. Mr. October is buying Brooks. Will says, if Daniel O'Neal's the quarterback next year, Carter Smith is gone. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, that's the world we live in college football. But ultimately, I would just say this in that hypothetical is that just means Daniel O'Neal's probably kind of a dude, and that's okay too. You know, if you find your quarterback and they're pretty young, then I don't want Carter Smith to go anywhere if that hypothetical were to happen. But it's worth it if you find your quarterback. And I don't think Will would argue with that. Like, you have to find your quarterback, and when you do, you are going to lose other pieces. That's just the world we live in. But it's worth it if it means you found your guy. So, all right, we're going to wrap it there. Again, if you listen to this show late, throw your stock players that you're going to buy as well, players that you're excited about that you think are going to break out this year. We'll talk about those on a future show as well. Really do appreciate everybody tuning in on Wisconsin as always. Thank you, and we will definitely talk later.